thrilled that you are here to chat with me today. I know we're going to cover a lot today, so don't worry. I'll send a little documentation after the call with everything we discussed. And feel free to submit questions in the box on the right as we're going. I will hold all the questions to the end, but as things pop into your mind, feel free to throw them in. All right, and as I said, I'm Claire. I'm part of the customer support team here at Localist. I joined the team in April and have had the pleasure of meeting some of you. And while I have only been at Localist for a short time, I have almost 9 years of event planning experience under my belt. So we decided it might be a great time to pass the mic to me. I'm so excited you've joined us for the third and final installment of our webinar series, Making the Most of Your Event Content. Today we'll be finishing off by talking about promoting. And true to the purpose of promoting, we're trying to find ways to promote your platform and events, and to find ways to bring traffic back to your platform to ultimately increase user engagement. So during our time today, we'll discuss how to entice users to visit your calendar and strategies for promoting it, both inside and outside of Localist. So we'll first start with messaging around your calendar. We'll then go to what methods you can use to promote your calendar. And we'll finish up by talking about how to use Localist to promote your events. Launching and providing an interactive calendar, it's a big deal. And often the first wave of communication and promotion can feel like a no-brainer. However, don't fall victim to the build it and they will come mindset after your initial launch. Instead, think build it, promote it, and they will continue to return. Besides reminding people who already know about your calendar, your audience is constantly expanding and changing. So make sure you are proactively engaging your new and prospective users. So when promoting your calendar, don't just stop by letting people know, your audience, that they have a calendar. The next step would be letting them know it's full of really cool user-centric features. But we really want you to kick it up to the top level and highlight how your calendar benefits your audience. It's important to always keep your contributors and your users in mind when building messaging. So first and foremost, you need to highlight the benefits. So for example, regardless of how long your calendar's been up and running, do your users know they can submit events? Or do they know why it even benefits them to submit events? It sounds like a lot of work, right? Au contraire, adding an event actually only takes less than 2 minutes. And once approved, it's immediately on the calendar. So if the event location changes, for example, the original creator can always access and edit the form directly from the event page. If a group or place wants to add a ton of events, no problem. You can just share your bulk event template with them so they can submit all their events at once. And once an event is on the calendar, it's there in good times and bad because Localist never purges calendar content. That means that after an event is over, it will still be discoverable, which is extremely helpful for users to be able to see a track record of the great events you've already hosted and maybe hosting again in the future. If a user is going to your calendar for information for the annual 5K run that you host every 4th of July, for example, well, if you're not hosting it this year, they can still see the event details from last year. And while they're on your calendar, they can go ahead and find a new 4th of July plan. But don't worry, a past event will never rank higher than a current event in any search engine result pages. So there's no need to fret. It only benefits you by keeping this content. The benefit to a contributor is that, among other things, their events are eligible for curation by our various Localist tools. So if their event matches the criteria you set in your event newsletters or widgets, then they'll be automatically included in those listings. So their events can be publicized to a more targeted group without any extra work on their part. Who doesn't like free publicity that took no time for them? So for example, on the right side of the page, you have the Santa Clarita Arts has a Localist widget on their webpage. So any contributor who added an arts event to visit Santa Clarita's website would have their event displayed on this widget on Santa Clarita Arts' external calendar. So you can share the data about who's using your calendar with local stakeholders to get them to put events on your calendar. So you can tell community members, for example, how often events are created, who's your primary audience, and other demographic information that will help them see the value in adding events to your calendar. Like when you're placing an ad, they want to know who will see it and what the traffic it receives is like. So speak about your calendar as a free way to share their event content with their target audience. For example, someone hosting a kids camp might not be enticed to put that on your university's calendar, nor do your users want that. They want events that are relevant to them. So by accurately speaking about your calendar, you can make sure you have high-quality events at any given time. And who's visiting your site is also of interest to your base user, since they know that the events are as distinct as the different host of each event. Events will always be presented in the voice of the community and feels like the people it's serving. So because you allow the community to contribute, the calendar is constantly updating and will always have a wide range of dynamic event content. And at the end of the day, most of us are visual learners, so feel free to enter in a few events to show them live examples of what their events would look like. When they see the events live and in living color, it can help them visualize how Localist could work for them. Along that same wavelength, let's chat about some other Localist features that you might want to highlight in your promotion. So I know we've talked a lot about landing pages, and that's because, on Localist they're one part visibility booster and one part time saver. But don't worry, today we'll be chatting about a different side of landing pages, how they're useful when you're promoting your calendar. So don't worry, new webinar, new way of talking about landing pages. So as a brief recap for anyone who missed our previous webinars or might not be as familiar, landing pages give organizations and or places their own corner of your event calendar, where they can add context like photos, a description, list upcoming and past events, as well as link to social media or external websites. It has all the context that a user wants to know in one place. And I know you guys are Localist pros, so you probably already know this. But your potential contributors and users might not. So here are kind of three things to highlight for them as to why they should use Localist landing pages. So first, once a landing page is created, going forward the submitter will just need to select the landing page instead of repeatedly entering details. So selecting a group or a place saves them a lot of time, and who doesn't want to save time? Next, you can talk about how event landing pages or place landing pages are filled with areas that can include backlinks. So whether the links can be in the description, in custom fields, or website buttons, users won't be cut off from continuing their online hunt. It won't stop at your web page. They just want to click it and let them do so. And finally, like I said, at the end of the day, most of us are visual learners. Bringing all these points to life by presenting a live example of their content or a landing page shows them the opportunity that's there. You got to show them the money. And on the event landing page, you'll find I'm interested, which is a great way to gauge audience interest. For event organizers or contributors, they can see the amount of interest for an upcoming event for planning purposes, and it can help them influence the future events that they will hold based on what users enjoyed in the past. For users, it's really helpful to see what their friends are going to on campus or around the community. Your community is social. They want to see what other people are doing and who they know is going. A big plus when they click I'm interested is that they get a reminder the day before and the day after are prompted to leave feedback about the event. So they won't have to worry about missing an event because they forgot to add it to their calendar, or all their friends went and they didn't know and they missed out. By having I'm interested, it really allows to eliminate FOMO, or fear of missing out, for your users and contributors. And the more people express interest in an event, the larger the positive impact in trending. Trending really removes the guesswork in figuring out what events are popular, interesting, and worth attending to your users. So for contributors, they can see what's popular among users, and if their event is the one everyone wants to go to, they have the chance to have their event at the top of the calendar's homepage. And as a reminder, how events appear in trending is determined by an algorithm that largely includes user interest and engagement with the event. So in addition to what their friends like, how do we help users find events they are interested in the first place? Localist is easily navigable, allowing users to browse by group, place, event type, audience, or topic. Make sure you let your users know how simple it will be for them to find what they're looking for, and know that they won't waste their time browsing through a messy calendar. Users don't want to have to work to use your product, and they don't have to. They can easily see only concerts, for example, or find family-friendly events. Or if they're looking for events hosted in another language, they can easily do that depending on how your platform is set up. They don't have to skim through to find what they want. they can look in a direct targeted place, saving them time and frustration. Now we've kind of talked over ways to message your calendar to your users, but it's really important to also know how we're going to get the word out. It's really important that you don't just announce your calendar, but you keep mentioning it and plugging it consistently. If you're a higher ed institution, for example, you get new students every year. If you're a tourism bureau, you're always having new visitors. If you're a library, people move to the area every year, and hospitals are always seeing new patients. Your users are always changing and growing, so make sure you don't have a one-and-done attitude about messaging around your calendar. As marketing professionals, I know these tools are already in your toolkit, but I just want to highlight a few ways that you can promote specifically your calendar to your users with means you probably are already utilizing. So first and foremost, what better way to promote your calendar than on social media? I know you've already built up an online following, so let them know that your online presence is expanded. I'm sure you're already promoting these events on social media, but it's helpful to drop a line at the end and telling them that they can see more events on the calendar. Plus post a few things dedicated to highlighting your calendar as a whole with a call to action to click. So up at the top left, you see Explore Gwinnett, which is the tourism bureau for Gwinnett County outside of Atlanta. And the link that they're sharing here reminds their followers that they have a wonderful, robust calendar of all the cool things going on. There's 50 events this weekend. I know that I can go there to find something to do. And in the upper right, we have Colgate. They have a really cool festival every year around MLK Week. And they have really cool speakers and presentations. And so a student tweeted thanking one of the speakers for coming. Colgate saw this as an opportunity to, of course, thank the speaker, but then say, hey, for the rest of this week's events, go here. People that see that tweet might want to then click back and see what other cool events that they have to offer. And in the bottom right, Asbury Park, they actually built a widget so that way they can screenshot events to put them on Instagram. And it's a really great way to show their visitors and locals what's happening that day, which is a really cool creative use for that. So, if you're preparing or have just launched Localist, a blog post is a perfect place to share your excitement and the benefits your new platform has to offer. Continually highlighting the calendar. With each new article about a speaker series, have a line about viewing more events in the full calendar. If there's a local park with construction being done, have a link to the calendar with a prompt to view the modified schedule during renovation. Or, if your town was just ranked one of the top 50 beaches to visit in the U.S., in the post bragging about it, make sure to link to events happening on your calendar for visitors and locals who might go to that beach. What you're looking at right now is Loyola Marymount University, a year after signing with Localist, decided to re-engage their students about the calendar to make sure that people knew fully about it and as a reminder to keep using it. It was also a great way for them to answer common questions students had about the calendar to make sure that they're actively engaging with it. And another great way to engage your users is to include a call to action in your regular newsletter communications or the event section of any other written communication. At a minimum, your new calendar ideally is announced in a special email blast, but make sure on top of that you're sending regular dedicated events newsletters, or include a sampling of events as part of other communication tools. For example, tell each new community member about your calendar as a part of your new user experience. So things that you're already sending out can work for your calendar too. So think, as you see here on Towson University, they have a newsletter for the Cook Library. And in addition to having a section on the right-hand side about upcoming events, they also have a button there that links back to the master calendar. So in case, celebration of veteran authors, noontime jazz, or International Games Day is not something that that user is interested in, they know they can go exactly where they can go to find more. Think about your Localist platform as just any other social media platform. Just like Facebook and Twitter, accounts are given shout-outs and communications, and icons are splashed across headers and footers to direct people back to the pages. Treat your calendar the same way. Make sure you add links to bring people back. And while your calendar is online and most of your communications will probably be online as well, that doesn't mean it's the only promotion route you can take. While I know you're all tech savvy and might not remember the last time you used something like a paper phone book, you shouldn't totally discount written materials. If you're already creating brochures, information packets, or utilize signage in some other way, including a call to action to visit your events calendar can only help. It's one more place for users to learn about the calendar, another touch point, if you will, especially if it's next to other important information. So welcome packets, travel brochures, playbills at an event, they'll always have a physical version, and so this is another point where you can engage with your users. So now that you're engaging people to come to your calendar, how do you actually promote your content within and outside of Localist? So if you have, let's say, a festival or a series of themed events that you want to make sure people know about, you can use a channel. Channels curate events based on a variety of criteria, and they're totally customized to reflect whatever you really want as it pertains to the festival. The only thing that sticks is the header and footer, but the rest of the branding, for example, is totally customizable and negotiable. This is a really great way to highlight a series of events like Colgate's MLK Week. We mocked up a channel here for Walla Walla, which is a tourism bureau in Walla Walla, Washington, and they have a lot of vineyards nearby. So they have an annual wine festival. So we mocked up this channel to show how they might engage with their community around this short-term event, and they can have such different styling and branding. For example, they're using green buttons and different fonts and text that naturally exists on their platform, which is primarily orange. Another way to promote your content is using the featured events carousel. It's a really cool way to promote events you want to make sure your users see. It can hold up to 10 events at a time, and they appear in chronological order. Once the most recent event ends, a new one appears in the carousel. You can flag an infinite number of events as featured, and they'll enter when it's their time. So have no fear, you don't have to remember to actively be tagging 10 events. You can set it and forget it. And if you have events that may need a little help, but you don't want them featured in the featured events carousel, you can sponsor them, which gives them an automatic boost in trending and different styling. So on this page, for Boston College, the Summer Book Swap is an example of a sponsored event. It's a great way to make sure that events appear higher in trending and kind of stick out on the page to users if it's something really exciting. And maybe there's a huge thing you want promoted above and beyond the normal ways, like the featured events carousel or sponsored. So someone special visiting campus, or someone, a big concert coming into town, or maybe someone wants to pay you for a prime spot on your calendar. You can add a special block with the theme editor and have a unique event displayed there, like you see on the right. There's really a ton of ways to be able to promote your event content within Localist. But now let's talk about some ways to promote your event content external to Localist through widgets. So widgets are a really great way to spread your Localist content naturally on other sites. The automatic display has event descriptions, location, date, time, and event photo. This can be anything, can be anywhere from your website homepage to a local Chamber of Commerce site to a department homepage to a local blog, you name it. By using Localist widgets on external sites, it allows users to discover events passively in their own time and on their own path, in case they aren't actively looking for events. Your users are expecting everything they need to be accessible from the same page, and widgets allow you to put your event content where users might organically find it, while it's still linking back to the calendar. The two widgets you're looking at right now are both homepage widgets that customers have chosen to put on their organization homepages. This is a really great way to make sure that everyone who's visiting your organization's website also can see all the other cool things you have to offer. And these are some examples of customers who've chosen to use a widget on a different site. So, using a Localist widget saves you time. You don't have to re-enter the data, and the widget automatically populates so you can set it and forget it. There's no need to continue to curate. And by using a Localist widget, you get all the click-throughs to your calendar that you wouldn't get if you were to enter the event separately or just have some flat text about it, or even use the API. And I recommend making sure there's a call to action at the bottom linking to the rest of your calendar, or for events of the same type. So as you see on the right, the circled More Events button. You also could have a button that either says View More Events, or it could be more specific, View More Concerts, or View More Arts Events, to direct users back to your calendar for more of the things they're interested in. And Localist widgets are highly customizable, so you can have them match your Localist platform or the branding of the site that they're being put on. And speaking of branding, by using the event content in a widget, you can ensure that you have a consistent voice associated with all of your events. Whew, I know that was a lot of info. That's a lot to take in. But before I get to questions, just quickly recap what we talked about today. First and foremost, we talked about promoting your calendar and emphasizing how it benefits your contributors and your users, and not just that you have a calendar. So things like event submissions, a highly navigable platform, and automatic curation with features like landing pages and I'm interested are really great ways to start talking about your calendar. And then we talked about methods to introduce and continually share your calendar to reach your users through social media, blogs, newsletters, and physical collateral. And finally, we talked about promoting your events inside and outside of Localist through methods like channels, featuring and sponsoring events, and widgets. All right, I think that's pretty much all I have to talk about today. Any questions? All right, it looks like we got a couple. Let me pull them up here. Okay. So one person said, that's so much messaging. Won't that get annoying to students? It's a great question. I think if you're planning this calendar for your users, so ideally, you want to see what your users respond to. And the way to determine what that is by sending out regular, consistent communication through multiple channels and then adjusting accordingly. So if everyone's unsubscribing to your events newsletter, then maybe that's not the right fit for you. But instead you're finding that people love when you share events on Facebook, or they really utilize the widgets on various department homepages. So keep in mind that you can't manage what you don't measure. So we recommend starting with all of these methods and make sure you're keeping a measured usage of how many users are really interacting with the various things, and then you can kind of adjust as necessary based on that data you get back. Because your users really value your calendar, but it is also often, it's easy for them to forget it exists if it's not at the top of their mind. Especially between school years, people can forget, and you get new students and there's a turnover, so it's important to keep consistent messaging to make sure you don't miss anyone who just might not know or might not remember. Okay, someone asked, how do I get that View More Events button for my widget? Excellent question. So Localist has a button that you can add to your widgets that will direct them back to your calendar, but keep in mind it's just a button with a link back to your calendar. So if you want to create one for just your arts and culture events, just your concerts, just your athletic events, you can absolutely do that. You just create a button and have it link back to whichever page you'd like them to visit.